Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster G. Tarpley at Twitter, tarpley.net online, and of course buy those books, in particular Obama, the Postmodern Coup, The Making of a Manchurian Candidate, looking pretty good in terms of the diagnostics in there of what Obama would do. He's doing exactly what I said. Go back to Obama, the Postmodern Coup, and you'll read what he's doing and what he will do. The conclusion, therefore, is of our previous segment's discussion, the United Nations Security Council resolution against Libya is illegal in that it violates the Charter. The notion that you can intervene in the sovereign affairs of a member state of the United Nations based on the need to protect civilians by all necessary means, which means anything, that opens the door to ground invasion as well. But above all, no-fly zones, and above all, bombing campaigns, predator drones, cruise missiles, all the wonderful things we've seen that are so much appreciated in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is out of this world because this charter specifies that only threats to international peace and security and the restoration of international peace and security can be the basis of Chapter 7 measures. No state can be an aggressor on its own territory, and therefore this resolution is illegal. It is illegal. Now, the problem with the UN mechanism is, in theory, whatever the Security Council decides becomes international law. But what do you do when the decisions of the Security Council are in flagrant violation of the Charter itself? That is the situation we now have. There is no you might imagine an appeal to the World Court, say in The Hague, but of course this is a gaggle of imperialists as well. No hope there. So it looks to me like the entire UN system, which has been in latent crisis for about 20 years, now goes into a more acute phase. And above all, why these powers and not others? By what possible title do the British and the French get a seat on the UN Security Council, from which Japan, Indonesia, Turkey, South Africa, Nigeria, India, all of these are excluded. This is absolutely absurd and obsolete. So let's just look at the vote now. Important, of course, is that many countries at least abstained. We needed somebody to vote against it. We needed either Russia or China to vote against this monstrous resolution. They didn't do it. They're too weak. Their leadership obviously couldn't handle it. So the powers that are abstaining are India, Brazil, Germany, which is an important one as a NATO state, along with China and Russia. Now, Russia, the obvious thing here is that you've got a split leadership, you've got a Putin faction, and you've got Medvedev, and of course even in the case of the Putin faction characteristically responds to these things by judo. He doesn't stand in front of the imperialists and try to stop them. He steps to one side, lets the imperialists start the next conflagration, say the Afghan war, sure in the knowledge that the imperialists will be weakened and undermined by their own actions. And that's, of course, likely to take place in this case too. But you're not going to get from Putin is a direct stand unless the power relations evolve even further. I actually would argue, though, the power relations have evolved to the point where a Russian veto would have been eminently feasible. In the case of China always much more low profile even than Russia, and China right now in the middle of a succession process, right? The next president, Xi, Xi, he will be coming on soon, and they're in the middle of this transition. The Chinese are caught, as one a Dutch specialist put it, the Chinese would like to vote against interference in the internal affairs of sovereign states. They'd like to veto it. But on the other hand, they have so much in the way of interest in the Middle East that they're afraid the Anglo-Americans can take away from them. So there's a blackmail effect that goes on. The British, we'll get to them in a minute. Let's just keep going through the other ones. The Russians and the Chinese abstained. Germany always reluctant to support military adventures, very unhappy with the results of the Afghan war. India, the Indian representative pointed out something very important, that this decision is flawed also because it was made in the absolute absence of objective, guaranteed information. Ban Ki-moon, this pathetic imperialist puppet, had sent a representative to Libya to find out what was going on. His delegate, his man on the scene. That guy has come back, but as the Indian delegate pointed out, the members of the Security Council had not received a report from this Ban Ki-moon representative, nor had the UN Secretariat, Ban Ki-moon's Secretariat, nor had the Secretariat given them a digest or report of what the representative there had found in Libya. So this is all done on the basis of hearsay. It's all done on the basis of Al Jazeera. In other words, the inflamed, lying, hyped, black propaganda, Goebbels rhetoric pouring out of Al Jazeera Putsch vision is the basis of what the UN is doing. Al Jazeera, of course, this morning trying to hype that a massacre is going on at Misurata and therefore Libya has to be bombed right away. Again, Nuremberg precedents would say that's getting into the area of international conspiracy to wage aggressive war. Goebbels, if he had been at Nuremberg, would have fared very badly. He took himself out of contention before the fact. But people have to think about this. So the Indian delegate correctly points out that this was done in the absolute absence of anything serious. Others, various Italian politicians, have pointed out that the Kosovo emergency, so-called, of 1999, was either invented or completely exaggerated. The Brazilians say this goes much too far. Now, this is Dilma Rousseff's representative. This goes way too far. The German representative points out that this contains many dangers. These may be prophetic words, that it contains many, many dangers, many pitfalls. Let's see, concerning what the Brazilian representative, Maria Luisa Ribeiro Viotti, says that military action in Libya will exacerbate tensions on the ground and cause more harm than good to the same civilians we are trying to protect. Military action will undermine the spontaneous, homegrown nature of popular rebellions. Well, that's a bunch of malarkey. Change the narrative in ways that will have serious repercussions for Libya and the rest of the region. Maybe she means that the so-called democracy protesters will increasingly be seen as foreign puppets, as the first wave of a NATO colonialist, imperialist assault. Well, that's probably true. And the German statement along the same lines. So those are the people saying no. Now saying yes, we have the two reactionaries, Sarkozy, a right-winger, and Cameron, a right-winger, and they're the big ones supporting our wonderful peace hero, Obama. And we'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.